Welcome back to Making Video Your Business, the podcast that me and Chris do, and get some really cool people on to chat stuff. This week, Matt Goddard. Hi, Matt. How are you?
Very well, thank you. How are you?
Really good to see you. I'm very well, thanks. So Matt is, by trade, a CTO, right? And you've been through loads of tech iterations of your job, I guess. But what do you do, and what are you currently doing?
It was a quick rundown. Spent nearly 10 years at Foxtons, then nearly 10 years at Repit, and then at the start of 2022, ended December 2021, started my own business, basically doing the things I love, working with businesses, either helping estate agents with their tech and the products they use, or helping suppliers and partners with that side of things. So been doing that for coming up on 3 years. I use the term humbling, working with a lot of amazing businesses, on both the partner side and the estate agency side.
And were you matching partners and suppliers in estate agency, or were you like in there solving the problems, giving solutions?
So my initial plan when I started GCG, or Goddard Consultant Group, was basically towards the end of the time at Repit, we built foundations. There's a lot of fanfare around that, and we effectively made Repit Salesforce for property.
So you and this is what I questioned before we come on the podcast, but you and your team of architects and devs literally built that from the ground up, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't absolutely. Like, oh, we've got this and we'll alter it slightly.
If anything, one of the faults that got put towards us at Repit is nobody could integrate, nobody could customize themselves. Right. And as the chief product officer, one of the challenges I had is if someone came and said, I want to customize this particular screen at Repit, we could do that, and that was absolutely fine. But it was the same engineers that would be building the core product. So any strategy you had to deliver certain bits of functionality would then be parked to one side while you built that core piece of, that custom piece of functionality. What Foundations allowed us to do is that the engineers cut all of that from scratch so that anybody could come along, customize the product, and also integrate with it. So whether it was a complete ASAP wanting to bring in the memorandum of sale information as an example, then they could use the APIs to do that, or whether it's a high-end corporate who wanted to replace several of the screens for their own business, and so you'd still be using the Repit CRM, but the screens would look very different if you walked into a Knight Frank versus a Savills versus a Strutton Parker. So it'd still look the same, but it would be just interact and work in a very different way. So that was the basis of it. And if anyone sort of deals with Salesforce, you never speak to Salesforce directly. That was the same thing with Repit. We built a self-serve platform so that the developers put more time into writing the documentation than did necessarily cutting the code. Right. And what you do with Salesforce, if you take Salesforce and want to customize it, you go to a trailhead. That's what they call the community of people who are systems integrators, engineers who customize Salesforce for you. Right. And what I saw is the opportunity to be the first trailhead for the Repit Foundations platform. So set up GCG. That was the idea. Got some really amazing contracts straight off the bat. Some quite humbling big corporates.
Who knew of you through Foxtons and all that?
Exactly. And it's quite an incestuous industry, and you sort of people move around, even to the extent that a long time ago I went to Melbourne for a weekend. We were talking about this off air. For a weekend, did some meetings over there, and one of my old property managers from Foxtons was the director of property management for this business in Melbourne that I went to pitch as part of Repit. Exactly. And so, hey Martin, how are you? And can we sell you some software, please? And obviously then you have to start saying data instead of data and all the other anomalies. But that's sort of like where the idea came from. So I got some corporates and I got some great partners who I'd again worked with for a long time. So SMS Speedway, who despite the name do much more than text messaging, were one of the first integrators with Repit back in 98, 99.
Were they really?
Yes, and they wanted some help with their products that they're building out, not just for Repit, for Rex and for Street and for all the other people that they work with. So that was again people who sort of came along and said, "Can you help us on this front?" So that was sort of where the business started. We're now offering fractional roles around CTOs, CPOs, non-execs. Across some incredible brands, incredible businesses as well.
And do you, sort of, not necessarily the visual side of things, but I was always going to mention AI to you, visuals obviously, but just on the AI briefly, do you guys employ those types of software pieces like ChatGPT, to actually help with some solutions for coding and stuff? Because I've heard and read stories where kids are just going, write me code for this, and it does. It almost rolls you out a new website or, whatever you're working on. But are those tools being used or have been being used for way longer than we thought?
A lot longer, and a lot of AI, a lot of AI has been around for a fair while. Machine learning, large language models are the ones that have kicked off, and that's ChatGPT. And there's things like the most obvious one is your sort of spell checker. And when that first came along, it was like the wiggly line, and then it started to change things, and now it's even kicking on to giving you the full sentence to complete. So that sort of evolved over time, and I'm sure you should sort of look back and remember-ish when spell checker came in. It was a long time before ChatGPT came along. But the interesting thing was that engineers is everybody works in different languages, and they all have their own sort of equivalents of ChatGPT or Copilot and these other tools. So I went to a British Computer Society conference a little while back, and the guy from BT was there. He's got about 2,000 engineers, and they tried to sort of over everybody say, right, we're going to use Amazon's service.
Like the AWS stuff, or
Exactly. And they came back to say, well, some of the engineers weren't adopting it. And it wasn't because they didn't want to use it. It's because they already had the one that worked with their IDE, which is what they code within. And therefore they were comfortable with. Because most of the time it's a case of the things that are getting prompted are the things you do over and over and over again. In the same way, you don't really want to start with a blank document where you want to edit something, and maybe if you're doing a presentation, you take a presentation from before and update it for the situation you're in. So people are using it. And I was talking to one company at the moment who's got their own in-house CRM, and they're basing it, so it's moving from an old technology to a new one. And what they're doing is they're running through the old code through ChatGPT, then taking the code that's presented back, running that through another one, LLM, for the LLM to then pick out if there's been any issues, and then they have an actual engineer review the code at the end of that.
Really? So it's almost a spell checker for ChatGPT. Like there's another language learning model that's
those iterations. So any issues or anything else, because you get these things back, you look at the code and go, actually, that's not going to work. You make some tweaks. If you can get a second iteration or a third iteration that does that, and it's actually what the engineers end up doing is it's building blocks. And this has been a change. I did computer science in 2002. I finished doing it. So the way you wrote code back then is a lot different to how you do it now.
It has massively evolved. There's not a structure. Everyone still works. So, my basic knowledge is like CSS, Python. Is that still a thing?
Python's definitely there, CSS with websites, but there's things like I was C++ and Java. Now there's a C#.NET, and with Python as an example, there's a lot of libraries you can call on. Those libraries are pre-written, it's sort of building blocks. And so as an engineer, you become someone who puts those building blocks together and take it from there. Whereas if an LLM or a Copilot can bring those along, put those blocks together, and then you review what's been put there, fantastic. And even my brother, he creates certain things for his business. He works for an estate agent, but he'll run that through ChatGPT. He understands Python. He did a master's in computer science. So he can then run these things quite quickly. And it's not just developers. If you're trying to put together some Excel and you want a calculation, you can throw that through ChatGPT or Gemini or whatever and get the answers back. And so it means that you've almost got an assistant there taking out a lot of that consideration.
Okay, and for estate agents, do you see any of them being able to, like you said, your brother runs one, and he's got like a really cool coding computer science background, but what would he use? Would he just change the look of his own website? What kind of things would he employ that for, that knowledge? Or
so for him, as in a particular example, he works in, I guess, what we call like prospecting. And so he's using that to gather data, cleanse it, distribute different. So you can use, in his sense, Python to manage massive amounts of data. It's like the data scientist coding language. So you can run scripts and pull data together and then present it back to his team of prospectors to actually target who they're working with. Other people who are using AI to use SMS Speedway, who, I'll just say it again, it should be just be called Speedway or even AI Speedway.
Yeah, because SMS sounds like a text message.
It does. Well, it's, that's the core of the business. They were banking level text messages. If you get a text from your bank, it's normally them that's delivered it.
Really?
But we know in our industry from delivering text messages, viewing reminders, follow-up viewing appointments, that sort of thing. But they've got a huge amount of AI as well, and it's sort of automation-led AI. So it might be you've done a viewing and you get a text through or WhatsApp through, because WhatsApp's more conversational, to say, Matt, what did you think about that property? You come back with a list of 6 responses that are static and then can enter some information. If you send in some information, that then starts using AI to sort of understand what you've said and then call out any prompts to go, oh, actually, here's a sales opportunity. Do you want to make an offer? Or actually, that property wasn't right for you. You've currently got a 2-bed requirement, but it sounds like you need a 3-bed requirement. Do you want me to show you some 3 beds? So able to have a structured approach to it, but then take what you're saying sort of conversationally and go, right, actually it goes down this route.
And most people probably nowadays wouldn't realise they're having that conversation with not necessarily a chat bot, but sort of, right? Ian Preston talked about it when I saw him talk at Twickenham a few months ago now, but he was saying the way they've set up their WhatsApp conversations, then people genuinely don't realise that they're chatting to a chatbot, really, because there's been so much good information and sort of colloquialisms popped in the top in terms of conversation words that people just sort of go, oh, actually, no, it was really nice, but yeah, we were looking for a bigger third bedroom, like you said, and it starts to analyse the answers and then booking appointments for them. And okay, so and what are you then doing? How does that all work with, you know, a popular high street name, I guess, Complete ASAP? Like Joe Public wouldn't know it, but a lot of other estate agents would know it because they'll use them for sales progression. How are you? Did say Richard, who runs it, did he present you with some issues or?
So Richard and I are part of Property Academy, and so we're at the partnerships summer party thing, the SAS Who Dares Win.
Yes.
And as part of that, Richard had been looking at someone to help them come into the business and boost the technology side of things. They've built an amazing business between Tony himself, got John in doing finance and Jamie and the rest of the team. But what they could see is that if we bring some more technology solutions in, we could really sort of take it to the next level. And I spent 4 or 5 days up in the Pontefract office with the rest of the team looking at what they were doing. Tony put a real good sort of laundry list of what they actually have internally from the different systems. And quite a lot of teams, when I talk to businesses, they're almost quite embarrassed that we're using this over here, doing this manually. But it's the same as true over and over again. And I sort of even harking back to as I was leaving Foxtons, a lot of the MI I was producing was all being produced from Excel. Everyone's like, oh, you've got this amazing in-house system. Well, at that stage, the in-house system produced Excel. I then manipulated it and presented the statistics out to the area directors and the board.
Yeah.
And it's no different. You've just got to go through those evolutions as you sort of take those step changes. But it means that what a fantastic business they already are with ASAP. And if we can put some automations in, we can bring those different silos of data together and then look at what other solutions might help some of the efficiencies, whether it's the MOS coming in handwritten from one particular agency and then in a different way from another. And you've got to have a team sort of processing all of that to the updates to the vendors and buyers and the agents as well. So Richard and I and Tony spent a bit of time looking at how the teams were working. I then put a proposal back to say, look, here's what we could be doing. And we put a strategic plan together, and it's like really exciting that over the next period of time we'll be able to spend actually implementing those things and seeing the business
labor,
grow. And then the team gets to spend more time actually doing the stuff that's really enjoyable, dealing with the vendors, the buyers, giving the updates, actually on the phones, doing the jobs rather than a lot of the administration process.
Cool. Okay. So, and what do you do outside of this sort of brainiac tech world, and what are you watching at the minute? Do you watch podcasts? Do you watch films? Are you into your box sets? Give them a recommendation.
So podcasts I mainly listen to. Spend a lot of time running at the gym, in the car. Obviously your one. I have actually started watching The Overlap just on telly.
Right.
And just mainly because the fact it's like being down the pub with your pals or something, like the banter and things, none of the content. But in terms of what we watch at home, so mine are old school still. So when I say old school-ish, Slow Horses, obviously the latest series of that's just finished.
I see that around, but I've not watched.
You've not actually watched it yet?
Not yet.
Okay,
no.
So because of Slow Horses, I got pushed something on one of the articles online, started going back and watching it, Spooks. So I never watched that at the time. And I've mentioned it to some people and they're going like, oh, that is ace. And there's like one of those ones where there's so many series to go through. But I think we're into series 3 now, and it's like, it is solid.
Yeah, it is solid.
And just started watching Cross on Prime as well.
Cool. I think we've been chatting long enough. We could probably do a two-parter, but
my phone's ringing, which probably means we're bang on time.
Excellent. Yeah, you've got meetings and stuff. Listen, I wish you all the best in the future. If you're whizzing past on the way to good old Grimsby, then do pop in and we'll do this again, mate.
Thanks for the invite. Privileged to be here.
No problem. Take care, mate.
Cheers.
See you soon, guys.